your dad or some relation was a big name in super late models over there or something like that? Asphalt?
Yeah, he in 2001 he was what the series was, the NASCAR Featherlight Southwest Tour Series. He was the champion in that. My uncle in '98, I think, he was the champion and the Rookie of the Year in that series. And that series basically back then was like the one right before you jump into the Truck Series.
It was
And
like
they were both,
Harvick and Ron Hornaday's that they kind of made it famous.
yep, Harvick, Hornaday, Kurt Busch, Ken Schrader. Their big race every year was at Sonoma, or back then it was Sears Point, and my dad won that one. I can't remember what year it was in, but that was a huge race because it was the same weekend as the Cup race, and they'd have 50-something cars. A bunch of Cup guys would be in the show, and my dad, he had the chance to win that one a couple times, I think once or twice. So yeah, that's what I grew up in was pavement racing, was NASCAR stuff, right? And as soon as I got a taste of, Chico on a Saturday night and realized I didn't have to show up at 8 a.m. for 6 practice sessions and going through tech and all that stuff, I was like, man, this is way better, man. I can show up at 6 p.m. and the race is over by 9,
Yeah, and how old were you when that switch happened? When was the first time you saw dirt?
Yeah, I would say probably, well, when I started racing, I started racing on dirt, and I'd say that was probably when I was maybe 13 years old. So, well,
Okay.
I'm 29 now, 16 years ago. So 2000, oh boy, 2007, that's when I started racing on dirt, and that's when I started meeting my, good friends of mine to this day, Logan Seavey, Tyler Seavey, and a couple other guys that I'm still really good friends with to
So
this
you were
day,
at
and
the
I still
CV
go to
era of Cycle Land and the whole, because there was I heard that up there in the Cycle Land karting era, there was kind of like eras of drivers. You had your different eras, and there was an era there that I heard was the CV era in the outlaw karts.
Yeah, man. The first couple of years when I started announcing at Cycleland and Red Bluff too was, a lot of really good guys came out of that time period. Obviously Logan Seavey, but Tanner Thorson was there at that time as well, and Buddy Kofoid was kind of just getting going as well. And I could keep going on and on, man, about the guys that have come out of the go-karts, whether it's whether they ran them until they were in the 250 class and they left, or they ran it up to the opens, or whatever. Brad Sweet, he used to run there. Rico ran there. Matt DiBenedetto ran there. Justin Grant, Robert Ballou. There's so many guys.
I think Tyler Reddick.
Tyler Reddick, he was there as well. I'm actually on a website right now that shows you all the different winners and stuff. And dude, there's so many names that Jonathan Aller. There's guys, Sean Becker. He still comes back and races the go-karts, right? And Larson, he's going to be racing there this weekend, So, but yeah, I was very fortunate to be able to race. I wasn't very good, Chaz, and that's why I kind of turned to the microphone side of things. I knew I wasn't good, and my family didn't have a ton of money to keep me going. Probably good for the better, or else we'd still be going right now and wasting our time. But yeah, it was a super fun time, and I made friends that I are still friends with to this day, and some of them have been very, very successful in this business.
Now, how did you move up that quick? That's the question I got. How did you, because not that quick. Obviously it took time, years. A year is not even a quick time. A year is a long time. But was it just connections? How did you get? When I was looking at your photos last night, I saw Speed Sport on there. It looked like you had done a lot. So I guess it just started announcing where at Cycle Land, Red Bluff, and then how did that progress?
Yeah, I think the first race I ever announced was at Red Bluff, and I was commenting on your video last night. The highlight video is actually on YouTube. I was able to find it last night, and it's pretty cringeworthy, man. I was like, I sound like I barely had hit puberty at the time, but yeah. But anyway,
was that with Shaw and Fast Four or no?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kyler Shaw. Well, the first race I actually stepped in because the guy that was the normal announcer, it was actually 2 weekends in a row. The first weekend he had his bachelor party, and so I filled in for him then. And then the next weekend he was getting married, and so I was filling in for 2 weeks in a row. And after the second weekend, I was like, well, hey, that was fun. I guess, whatever. I guess I'm going to go back to hanging out in the pits and the hot pit and doing some Twitter updates and whatnot here and there. But, Kyler had gotten in contact with me and said, hey, man, you're doing a pretty good job. Why don't we go to some of these races out of state and let's go do some stuff, let's go film some races, right? And this was before, Fast Forward was even a live streaming deal. It was strictly a highlight video, not even streaming to the internet, right? So that year we went to Idaho and Oregon and Montana, Washington State, all over the place. And, at the same time I was going to college. I had a full-time job. I was doing all kinds of stuff just to, make ends meet. And at the time, man, I did like 10 or so races, and at that time I still had no, there was no way I was going to be an announcer, right? I just didn't have any thought of that being a job, right? But then, eventually, like you said, the Speed Sport deal, I can't remember if that was first or not. I think the first big break that I had actually was Jeremy from Millbridge. He's the guy that promoted that big race, the Indy Invitational. Remember that one indoors at the PRI show? It was the midgets and it was the outlaw cars. I was up there with Blake Anderson and Bob Dillner, and I did that one. That was a pretty big deal for me. Actually got to interview Scott Bloomquist. He came up into the booth and was sitting next to me. There was a picture of me sitting next to him on the big screen inside the dome there. That was a big break for me. And then, later on down the line, Red Bluff is a big deal, man. And that's what Speed Sport came in there and saw an opportunity to put together a couple of shows for MAV TV. And, for a couple of our big races. And they asked me to be the whatever you want to call it. I guess it's not really a pit reporter because it was all tape delayed, right? But just getting interviews with guys pre-race and obviously Victory Lane and stuff like that. So probably did that maybe 8 or so times. And I guess that was my real first foray into being on camera. And I feel like that kind of prepared me a little bit for doing the DirTVision thing, right? And being on camera all the time. So that was my start, man. And I did it for a long time.
What year was this?
This was probably, you were looking at I'll have to look at the pictures right now and see that Speed Sport one. I can't remember, to be honest with you. Maybe 2016 or 17 maybe or something like that. I'd have to go back here on my Facebook and look. Luckily, I don't post too much on Facebook, so I can be able to find these photos pretty quick.
Right.
But 16 or 17 maybe is when I did the Speed Sport stuff. So here's 7 years ago. So when was that? 2016 is when I did a couple of those races. And then later on, Tim Truex, who was he used to be the Loud Pedal TV guy.
Amazing videographer and editor, and some of those nice people remember those badass freaking Chili Bow highlights with Rico and the music and all that. I'm pretty sure that was Tim Truex.
Yeah, that is exactly who it was, man. He's one of the best videographers of all time for those slow-mo edits and whatnot.
Yeah, editing's anybody can take the video. It's the editing that's really hard, I equate videoing kind of like going to the grocery store and getting all the groceries, and then the editing is actually putting the groceries on the table and making a meal, and the video is the meal. Some people could take all the groceries and make crap, and other guys can make what Tim Truex made. The meal that he could produce was amazing.
Yeah, he takes thousands of clips and somehow turns it into a masterpiece, whether that's the Chili Bowl or one of my favorite ones is always Indiana Sprint Week that he did.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
He made Nolwing cool,
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. His slow-mo stuff was just unbelievable. It was crazy to see what those cars are doing in the middle of the corner. Obviously, we see them at full speed, but to see what they're doing slow-mo, it's crazy. But I got in contact with him, and he was the guy doing all the USAC West Coast, like the Western State Midgets and West Coast 360, USAC CRA. And those were my first sprint car races I ever announced was USAC CRA. I want to say it was at Hanford in California. And I did that for probably about 3 years or so. And for a long time, Chaz, I was spinning my wheels, man. I didn't know what I was doing. I was traveling. I'm not kidding you, man. I was working at the Walmart distribution center. I was driving a forklift from 3:30 in the afternoon till 2 a.m., 4 days a week. And before 3:30 p.m., I was driving 45 minutes to and from Chico State to get a degree. And then I go work till 2 in the morning, wake up at 8 a.m. every day. And then Saturdays, I drive 6 or 7 hours to go to these USAC races because none of them were in Northern California. I was driving to Santa Maria. I was driving to Ventura.
Right.
I was driving to Hanford.
CRA is all Southern California from, middle to southern.
Exactly, so I was driving super far every weekend, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't making any money. I was making money, right? Like I was getting paid, but like by the time I paid my gas and food and everything, I was losing money. I was doing it to try and get a chance, right? I was trying to get to USAC National, right? But I was like, and for a while there, I almost quit, dude. I was like, man, this is a lot of work. Like this is a lot of driving for not a lot of reward, So almost called it quits, but obviously, stuck it out. And there was a couple more moments. I got to go do Power Eye Speed Week. I want to say in 2016. That was cool. Did a couple King of the West races. I got to announce Gio Selby and Buddy Kofoid's first ever 410 win. Did a couple cool things like that, but yeah, for a while there, man, it was tough to keep going. I ain't gonna lie to you.
So then, what actually got the break? What actually changed that? Just cycle of no hope to here's a path. When did that go?
Yeah, for a long time, during all those years, I was, and what R Factor is, man. I was on R Factor, and the very early days of iRacing on dirt and whatnot, and I got to know a lot of people that are still really good friends of mine to this day. With Ross Weiss and Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe and Logan Seavey was there, James Edens. Adam,
I don't know. Did you see me? I don't know. Was I racing when you were racing? I'm not sure.
I thought you were announcing then, with SPR and all that stuff.
Might have been. I know I was doing both, but I know I raced pretty well on there. I mean, me, Larson, Ricky Thornton Jr. I remember a day in sim racing where you couldn't race nothing but late models. Funny enough, all the old school sim racing on like R Factor, and some remember even SAS Heat, all this stuff was mainly just late model racing. So guys like me, Larson, Mike McKinney, Ricky Thornton Jr., CV wasn't around at that point just yet, but we were all forced basically to run late models because all the games were made by people. And then the Boz sprint car mod came out, they call it, for R Factor, and that's when sprint cars started happening. I mean, this was probably 4 or 5 years before, probably 4 years before you even had the midgets in R Factor or anything like that. So probably when CV and all y'all showed up was around the time that I was getting out or doing announcing or something along those lines. But yeah, sim racing, you meet a lot of people. It's crazy, and they remember you depending on, how you performed on there. Chase Briscoe's hilarious,
Yeah, I mean, even when I was announcing at Red Bluff for a while after I sold my go-kart and everything, I met Gary McGuire, the guy that actually made the SPR,
or SPR,
midget, he was the midget guy.
Yes.
And I met him in real life, and he actually had a go-kart that I raced a couple times. Actually got a big win at the West Coast Nationals, a big heat race win. I know it's a heat race win, but if you know what the West Coast Nationals is at Red Bluff, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. And this car was an absolute turd box, but only reason I ran it was because I met Gary McGuire in real life after meeting him on R Factor, But yeah, and I didn't come into R Factor till way later in the game when the midgets were pretty well established. I couldn't figure out how to download all the mods and get all the TDFs and everything like that. I wasn't very technically savvy with that stuff. So, but I was still around. I was still racing and whatnot. But I can't remember. Oh, so anyway, so then. How
Get into talking to sim racing. That could be an episode on its own. But yeah, back to the timeline.
For sure, and so in meeting all these people along the way and whatnot, and going to the Chili Bowl every year. I went for 10 years in a row until the last year. You meet a lot of people along the way, and I met Brian Dunlap and I met Ross Weiss and all that, and Ross knew that I was pretty big into iRacing, and I was doing some announcing on there. And when COVID came through and they started running those World Outlaw Pro Invitational races on iRacing, they were having, Gravel and Schuhart and all the real guys get on there and race for real money. And Mike Hess was on there doing a driver's meeting for a virtual race and all that stuff. They had Johnny come on there to announce it, but Johnny didn't really know what exactly was going on with iRacing, right? He only announced races, at the track, in person, being there, never from a computer screen. Didn't really know exactly what was going on with that stuff. So they brought me in to kind of co-announce with him and help him, bridge that gap a little bit, right? And that was kind of my foot in the door was in COVID. Did a bunch of races for those. And then later on that year, 2020, I was with Kyler Shaw again and Fast Four Media. We were out at the US 24 Raceway in Indiana for a big micro race, and the next weekend after that was supposed to be another big race at Circus City Speedway. And in the middle of those races, there was a Sunday where the Outlaws were racing at Terre Haute, and so we weren't that far away. So I texted Brian Dunlap, and I said, hey, man, and I've been watching DirTVision and paying attention to what was going on, and they didn't have a pit reporter, right? It seemed like they had a pit reporter where every race was a different pit reporter. They never had anybody that was like, there every single race. And so I texted Dunlap. I said, hey, man, I'm in the area. If you guys are looking for a pit reporter, I can find a ride over there. Let me know, blah, blah, blah. And so he texted me back, hey, why not? Let's give it a try. And so I got a ride with Max Adams, who now races a sprint car out there in Indiana. He gave me a ride. It was about a 3-hour drive from where we were at to Terre Haute. Showed up, had no idea what the hell was going on. They gave me a shirt and a hat, and I literally did not know what to expect. The first thing that happened, like, they put me on camera in front of everybody, and like that was kind of the moment I was like, oh my God, like this is real, and Johnny Gibson's throwing it to me, right? A guy that I'd been listening to for 12 years, or longer than that. And I see some guy in the comments section, Douglas Zimmerman, said that's the night he pissed Schatz off on the track. Yeah, that was the night when I asked Donnie Schatz a 15-minute question under an open red after he blew up 2 motors and came from last to second. And that was also the same night that Brad Sweet was on a 3-race streak of DNFs. And that night at Terre Haute, he came in the hot pit like 3 or 4 times, lost the left front tire, it went flying into the parking lot, and Craig Kinzer lost the left front tire in qualifying. He flipped over. Carson Macedo hit the inside wall in the front stretch, running second. I mean, it was the craziest night of all time at Terre Haute, of all places. Ayrton Jenneton ran into Kerry Madsen running top 5 and flipped both of them over. And I got a lot of airtime that night. And apparently
that wasn't the night that gravel hit that guy or whatever, was it?
No, I don't. Honestly, I don't remember David Gravel. Oh, that was when he was in the JJR car. Macedo was in the 2.
Oh, okay. That year. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the year right before Carson went to the 41, I think. But, after that, Brian Dunlap texted me, said, dude, that was badass. Like, what are you doing on Tuesday night, which was the Brad Doty Classic? I said, well, hey, I'm not doing anything until next Thursday. I'm doing that micro race. He's like, okay, well, get a rental car, do whatever it takes to get to Attica. We need you there. Right? Okay, well, I guess I'm going to Attica. And that same night, man, Brad Sweet wrecks again. There's all this chaos going on in the speedster. I'm going back and forth to the hot pit, back to the infield, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And they liked it again. And then Brian Dunlap texted me and said, hey, what are you doing next week? I said, nothing. He said, you want to go to Williams Grove for the National Open or something? I can't remember if it was National Open or Summer National. I said, well, why not? And ever since then, man, it's kind of snowballed from there, I guess.
And then when did you become full-time? I guess the following or right then and there? When did you have to really think about a full year as being outlaw all the time on the road?
Yeah, that was, so 21 would have been my first full-time year. Jim Chappelli, he called me, I think in January, I think of 21. And I remember where I was at, man. I was sitting in a Starbucks parking lot in Red Bluff, California, and I got this phone call. And he said, hey, we're thinking about making you full-time and going to every single race. And I was like, I couldn't believe it, dude. I was like, this is insane. Like 5 years ago, I would have been like killing to be on I would have done anything to be on the Outlaw Tour, And he called me and it happened. And ever since then, I did last year was my 3rd year. So 3.5 years on the Outlaw Tour. So yeah, man, 21 would have been the first year full-time.
So, well, curious, because we've been hearing about this term burned out recently, and I've experienced it. When did that ever occur to you when this, because the dream, the idea of being out there going, it sounds like a dream. It's almost like we hear in the music industry, being on stage all the time in front of hundreds of thousands of people sounds cool. But, I personally hate listening to the same song every day. I would assume it gets old and frustrating to sing the same song every day. At some point, how did that point ever happen with you where it did get a little, it really settled in and the hype in your own mind kind of went away to now when did love turn into work, turn into life, kind of mingle to a point it became not frustrating, but hard as most people would say?
That's a great question. I mean, obviously, I'm not a driver. I'm not a crew guy. I'm not a, somebody that's, getting dirty and fixing cars and all that stuff every night and blah,
But
blah,
you're
blah.
busy.
And
Work comes
right,
in
no,
many forms. You're busy. I mean, you're
no,
working.
yeah. But here's the thing, man. We're putting the miles in just as much as they are. We're setting up. I mean, we're not working on race cars, but working on live streams, right? We're putting cameras up. We're putting
Climbing
microphones
fences,
up.
putting up banners, I'm sure, I mean,
putting up all the cables it takes to run a broadcast. I mean, all the stuff, right? I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but just a little bit different. We're just in a different spot. Most of the times, whatever race it was, DirTVision, we were the last ones to leave the track. We'd be leaving the track, all the trailers would be gone. We'd be there late at night, and sometimes driving 4 hours overnight and getting up at 9 a.m. the next day after staying in a hotel that, wasn't the best, or maybe your hotel got canceled somehow because you showed up too late or whatever, man. I mean, there was a lot of those moments along the way, right? But, yeah, and, there was obviously there's a couple moments where you're like, man, like, this is a lot, you're getting burnt out, you're struggling a little bit to,
the hype wears down.
The hype wears down, right? But, it's your job. And then, what I do every time I think like that, Chaz, is I think, thank God, this is my job, man. I'm not sitting in a McDonald's. I'm not sitting at a desk all day. I'm not hating my life. Like, I am watching the best racing on the planet every single night. I remind myself of that, and it gets me right back into where I need to be at. I realize that it's a lot of people that are probably watching this stream right now or whatever, watching DirTVision, they wish that they were out on the Outlaw Tour as their job, and I have to tell myself that, and it's obviously, I think about it and I'm like, man, I'm just in a really good spot. I'm a lucky guy to be able to do what I do. And, but it happens with everything, man. I mean, literally everything that somebody does 80 times a year, you're going to get a little bit burnt out with it, so, I can't imagine baseball players, man, they play 100 and something games a year, so I'm sure they get burnt out every now and again. So, yeah, it definitely happens. I won't lie to you, but got to remind yourself where you're at and what you're doing,
Well, and sometimes, you hear a lot of people say it ain't always a glorious position. It ain't always as great as it seems sometimes. I think that plays a factor as well. I mean, it is fun to be out there, and it is enjoyable to see new things, and traveling is cool. You see a lot of stuff up and down the road. And I do think there is something to what you just said there, is you don't want to, one of the things that kind of sets you back in place is like, well, at least, I'm doing this, and, you start valuing the life more so than the pay or things along those lines in comparison to a normal 9 to 5, and it sounds like that's kind of what you're saying. Just knowing that you weren't just that normal 9 to 5 is kind of what made it worth it, or helped you push through those hard moments.
Right. I mean, I kind of say it's like, technically for if you love what you do, it's not work. I feel like you've heard that saying from a lot of people. I'm not working a 9 to 5. I'm working sometimes, most of the time, it's 2 days a week for 4 hours a night. And then the other 2 days I'm flying in or flying back home or whatever it is. So, but yeah, I mean, and it's tough also being in the position that I was in to try and be creative, right, and come up with new things and say different stuff and find new stats and find a different spot of the racetrack that people don't see on DirTVision or Flow or whatever, and get those different stories and stuff like that. I'm sure it, trying to find new content and stuff to post and talk about every week. Right now, it's very easy to do because there's so much going on, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that's a part of the gig, right? You got to be a creative person. I just hope the people out there that have been watching DirTVision, sometimes I'm like, man, I feel like I've said that 100 times, but maybe they don't notice, or maybe they like it, so I'm not really sure.
Well, and sometimes I noticed, even being an announcer myself, you have to somewhat get okay, or back to the presenting element of the sport. You have to somewhat be aware that every week you're in a new, like, for instance, on the Outlaws, you're in a new town, you're in a new area, new fans are there, describing how track change or something like that, even if you're saying on DirTVision to a very professed racing audience, talking about like how a track changes and what wears it through and friction and what lanes to be in, sounds so dumbed down to maybe the DirTVision viewer or maybe someone who's a lifetime dirt track person. But for a person who's never been to the racetrack, and that's the people we direly need in dirt racing. I think we have plenty of diehards. We need to work on the new blood. Saying that type of stuff is somewhat going to be the difference between having them come back for the next event or come to that track that y'all are visiting the next week, getting them introduced to the sport. Sometimes that repetitive notion is needed, you know?
Yeah. And something I noticed specifically last year was a lot of people, coming up to me at the racetrack and, saying, hey man, you're the man, or you're badass, or, you do a great job, whatever. And a lot of them were young people, man, like younger than me. I'm 29, so I feel like I'm kind of old now, but I'm talking about guys that between 16 and 22. I feel like there was a lot of those guys coming up to me and saying that I do a good job. And most of them, they were wearing NASCAR shirts or NHRA or IndyCar shirts or whatever. They were kind of new, it seemed like, into the sprint car world, but they had been paying attention, right? And noticing sprint cars and watching sprint cars, whether it's on Flo or DirTVision, right? So I thought that was awesome. I feel like we are seeing more young people get into the sport. We just need more, right? We need to get more of those guys getting involved. But I will say there was quite an influx over the last, I would say, year and a half of people that at least came up to me and said something to me in person, and seeing people at the racetrack. Obviously, I'm at every racetrack in the infield. You see everybody there. So I think we're definitely on the right track, to seeing more of a younger demographic, getting involved, because that's what we need, man. These guys that have been around since '78, watching Wolfgang and Swindell and Bobby Davis or whatever, they're not going to be around forever, right? We need to get these younger people, that next generation that loves sprint car racing and shows their kids someday,
Well, and I definitely think that that generation is the one screaming the Outlaws are going to live forever. But we'll talk about that another time, or maybe later. But what you just said there is very interesting, about the, and with the new fans and new people. I always, even my deal with Larson, for instance, was about respect for the racer, because I think there is somewhat this unfortunate view of a sprint car as a high school vehicle. And I've kind of called it Cole Trickle syndrome, and it's happened since the 90s. Prior to the 90s, the Stars, the Swindells, and Kinsers were the icon of sprint car racing. And then ever since a California sprint car driver went to NASCAR and started beating the man in black in a movie, and then with Cole, and then real life Jeff Gordon, and then Tony Stewart, and then Case, it seemed like the star, the iconic position of the sport became the Cole Trickle, the one who left sprint car racing, not a 20-time champion, but the guy who used it as a high school stepping stone division. And I viewed that as an issue because it was making our players look like this was some kind of flag football or some kind of college sport. I argued with so many NASCAR fans who believed this, that, Chase Elliott could go to the Knoxville Nationals and just win it first try. That's what I was arguing with people in 2019. Now, I do think that Larson has slowly became somewhat of a gateway drug to the sport, but then once he does get them over here, and you got voices like me that people pop on to, and you got voices like you talk so highly about the drivers, that people start to recognize, hey, Larson just finished sixth. These five guys in front of him are pretty good. And that's kind of why I always celebrated a Larson getting beat win or situation. I think it was 19 where he went to California Speed Weeks and, averaged fifth. And I was promoting, happily that he lost, not to degrade him, but to say, hey, here's 4, 5, 6 other guys who are Larson level. They got extreme. These are pro athletes. These are top level competitors. How important do you think it is that the world around us, the new people, know that when they come to a sprint car race, they're watching some of the greatest race car drivers in the world? I know some people say in sprint cars or in dirt, but when you consider how high horsepowered our cars are and the things that they're doing on these slick ass half miles at 140 miles an hour, I would say that the skill set needed to handle one of those cars is elite. That's up there. So I don't know if that's too edge question, but more so, how do you feel about the importance of people knowing how elite the talent is on the track?
No, I 100% agree with you. You know, I do feel like people, you kind of get the notion that people, and by people, I'm saying like people that don't really know sprint car racing.
The people we're trying to attract.
Yeah, they think of it as a lower level, right? That's what they think, because they see Kyle come in sometimes and he dominates, right? Or they see, I mean, he's kind of really the only one, really, but and they think, oh, it must be pretty easy. You must be racing against, a bunch of minor league guys, and that's not the case. But I really do think that what is going to help Chaz is high limit. And I'm not just saying that because I just got hired by him, but what I think this is going to do, especially with the lineup they're putting together, and Kyle's going to run about half the races, right? And there's going to be a lot of press. There's going to be a lot of people watching, a lot of eyes on it. A lot of people from that world are going to be watching these races and seeing, I'm guessing, Kyle get beat quite a bit. And I think that is going to help with that notion that, hey, Rico Abreu is pretty darn good. He just beat Kyle Larson, or who else? Brent Marks. Right. He just beat Kyle Larson.
We got to start getting people to see Brent Marks and Kyle Busch in the same level. A Rico Abreu and God, I don't even want to say it. Ryan Blaney in the same category, but I can't. I just don't believe that at all. But I think asphalt can make you look way better than you actually are. But I'm just saying, in the perspective, these top Cup guys, or even F1, I'd compare them to F1. A Max Verstappen, a Hamilton, very, very fair comparison between a Hamilton and a Donnie Schatz, somebody who used to dominate and is kind of not up front as much anymore. But that is more so the issue, I think, that is going to make money, because respect is what people love. I mean, we're in America. We don't go to the movies if it says this Saturday is Robin. Or we don't go and celebrate G League basketball. We go to the pros. If we go outside of our own element, our own sport, or any form of entertainment, we go and watch PBR bull riding. We don't watch the second tier league of bull riding. And I think that's somewhat been an issue with racing in general, is NASCAR kind of representing it over the last 20 years kind of tunes people out. Because I think when new people watch NASCAR, they don't just say, if they don't like it, they don't say, I don't like racing, or I don't like NASCAR. They say, I don't like racing. It kind of represents the sport to the general population, which I think is unfair. But I think it goes back to, that's where people, just like in other sports, these other levels, high school, colleges, they view all these other forms of motorsport as that to a NASCAR. And I think that's a big issue. That's why I think the respect issue and the understanding, the ignorance is kind of the battle at hand.
No, it really is. And it sucks to see, man. It really does, because I am such a believer that that sprint car drivers, the top 15 guys are some of the best, maybe if not the best drivers in the entire world. I watch, I don't watch NASCAR, man. I really don't pay attention to it, but, you watch those cars go around the track, or you watch an F1 car go around the track, and I'm sure it takes a lot of skill to do it, but a good example to me is if you took a picture of a NASCAR Cup car or whatever racing around Kansas Speedway, right, a still shot, right, and then you took a picture of a sprint car getting around, Hobstadt or something, right? Like, you look at the Cup car and you're like, is he even going fast? Is that him under yellow? Is that him? Going.
How many times we see these sprint car drivers get out of the car drenching in sweat, breathing like they just ran a 5 mile or 5K? I mean,
right?
I ain't really seen that from them boys over there, and I don't think Logan Schuchart's out of shape.
No, he's not.
I'm just saying, like, not only do I think it's a little harder, it looks like they're going to work in there too.
Oh, they certainly are. I mean, especially on some of these racetracks they go to, man, where it may be a little rough and you got to get up on the fence or whatever, But I just wish we could live in a world, man, where we can take a Kyle Busch or take
Max Verstappen. I think Bill Rose could take Max Verstappen first try.
A Max Verstappen or a maybe a guy from IndyCar. I don't really know IndyCar very well, but take those guys, put them in a sprint car, see what happens, and take some of the sprint car guys and put them in one of their cars and see what happens, man. I would love to see something like that happen, because I think if those guys, if Lewis Hamilton got into a 410 sprint car and aisled around, I think he'd probably be shaking in his britches a little bit compared to his little. Are those F1 cars? Are they like electric now or something? I don't even know. But
hybrids, right?
I think he would be scared. Those guys would be scared to drive.
Well, they did a driver swap. I can't remember the driver. They put an F1 driver in Tony Stewart's car a few years ago, and they didn't really show the highlights of what happened. They kind of showed a half lap, but they didn't show the highlights. And I would just assume that's because he didn't really do anything special in it. Now, I was halfway thoroughly impressed, honestly, with how well Chase Elliott did at Merced against the local 360 crowd. So I will give Chase Elliott, but he had already done midgets and all this other stuff. Regardless, it's still hard to go to Merced and whip a 360 car around the track. He did okay. The issue I think that we would have in even having that a reality is the safety element. You hear a lot of people about how dangerous these cars are. I had my issue here recently with Taylor Reimer, and Kurt Reimer, her dad said, because I wanted her, instead of going asphalt racing, go sprint car racing. You could be a bigger star. I think there's more stock in being a sprint car driver in the next 10 years than being an asphalt cup driver in the next 10 years. I just see the stock going up personally. But the response was how dangerous they are. And that is a fair statement, Chase. I mean, the cars haven't been redesigned. You're somewhat of a tall guy. I've been in a sprint car. I'm assuming you have as well. You don't really have any room. I mean, your knees are on the damn steering box. Luckily they have these knee guards now. But prior to that, I mean, you might as well just cut your knees off your legs if you went into the wall at any kind of rate of speed. I mean, these are very dangerous cars in a way. They haven't developed. They haven't increased their cockpit rooms or any years. They've added some bars. They've added some, spray cans to help put the fire out, But I'm just saying, does there need to be some kind of evolution in the actual design of these cars to safeten them up? Because I believe it's just a lack of cockpit room. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's tough. Like you said, they've been trying to do different stuff with some of the safety bars and tethers and the new fire bottle and things like that. And I heard there's this kind of prototype seat out there right now that has like a shock or a spring on the bottom of it or something. So when you kind of land flat in a wreck, that the seat kind of goes down with the driver to try and take away that big hit to the back or whatever. So they're definitely trying to make those changes happen, but it's tough, man. I mean,
you only got so much room.
Yeah, you only got so much room in those cars, and I feel like without a complete overhaul of the car, then it's just not going to happen. And that's the charm, that's the novelty, right? It's like these cars, they've kind of been the same for a long time, right? That's one of the things. I mean, obviously they're very dangerous, but that's one of the things that I like about them, right? It's like they've been the same for so long. Like you had a NASCAR car from now to 2000 and to just to 1999 or 2000, right? And
yeah, the bullet cars. I think it's went 4 generations of cars since then.
Exactly. And the sprint car really hasn't changed. The basics have not changed all that much, and I think that's kind of a cool thing about our sport. Obviously, I want all the drivers to be safe. There's a lot of my friends, are racing those cars, right? I don't want to see them get hurt, but I just don't know what you can do. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a car builder. I just don't really know how much you can really do to make more room in there or make changes that can to not change the entire look of the car or change the way the car drives around the track. Because right now, the product that sprint car racing puts on right now, it's the best racing product, I think, on the planet. There was a couple times last year throughout the Outlaw season where I thought it was like it's like can't miss television, appointment television.
Right.
A lot of the times, see what is going on in the championship. There's 3 cars that are within 3 points of each other, and we're going to all these great tracks, and it's just back and forth all over the place. I mean, right now, I just think that sprint car racing, I think you can agree with this, it is if you looked at it on a graph, that line chart is going up, like in popularity, right? It is getting close to an all-time high right now, especially with all this craziness going on in this offseason, man. sprint car racing is getting more into the mainstream, I think.
Well, I guess we can talk about the craziness. You haven't really. I don't think you want to talk about when all this came about, but can you? When was there some timelines like before the season was over? Did you know that you could be doing what you're assigned to do now? When did this shift in your life kind of start? When did you know that you were or thought about not doing the pit reporting for DirTVision and being an announcer at High Limit? Because the announcer for High Limit deal was like a wide open game. Everybody was discussing, wondering, comment sections were full about it. When did you kind of know that this is what you were going to end up doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit here. I mean, it was, I mean, I'm still shocked right now that it's even me, to be completely honest with you. You know, I can't remember how long ago it was. World of Outlaws at Port Royal this year. Let me see. I'm on my computer so I can look this up right quick. But it was
funny.
Around that.
That's not happening again, but funny. Go ahead.
So it looks like it was on October 6th was the Port Royal show, right? So a few days before that, I had, this was when I think that, I can't remember, because I think I was hearing some rumors or whatever about High Limit doing a national tour or whatever. And I kind of knew that, Dylan Welch, he does a lot of NASCAR stuff. He's probably not going to be able to do a full High Limit schedule. Tony Bachhoven, he's running for mayor of Knoxville. He's probably not going to be able to do a full thing, right? So I just kind of sent a little text to Larson, and I just said, hey, all I said, that's funny, the text read, it said, we got them racked and stacked next year, ? And that was it. And I don't know if you know my old saying that I used back when I announced a lot was, we got them racked, we got them stacked. And
he knew that because he paid attention to that racing scene. So it was like it was the inside joke, technically.
Exactly, inside joke. So it was like just a text, and I, wasn't expecting anything about it, right? He responded, said a little something, whatever, and then that was it. So then Kyle had ran Port Royal on October 6th or whatever, and he was standing next to the track entrance, and I was standing there, and I was just like, hey, so what's going on with that deal next year? And he's like, oh, I sent your text to Brad, and he said he'd keep it in mind or something, right? And mind you, that's October 6th. So Then I don't hear anything for forever, right, for a long time. So then World Finals comes around, and I am fully prepared to go back on the Outlaw Tour the next year and be the pit reporter.
You're thinking it's over. You're thinking you shot your shot and you didn't get nothing back, and sometimes silence is the best answer type thing.
Yeah, and I mean, at least put it out there, put a feeler out there, right? And I wasn't mad that they didn't respond, right? Because I technically, man, I would say I am not a proven announcer on the national scene, right? I think you would agree with that.
Right. I feel the same way. Right.
Yeah, a lot of West Coast stuff, blah, blah, blah. But, and I was like, okay, they've probably got 50 people messaging about this job that are highly qualified. They are they've heard them before. They're the best, right? So World Finals comes around. I'm talking to my bosses there. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to, come back and do it again. So that was my plan. So then the day after Thanksgiving, I got a call from Mike Hanson. He kind of said something about it, and I was like, well, I mean, that's the next progression in my professional career, right? Is to go from pit reporter and try to be an announcer, right? Because that's what I want to be, is an announcer. And he put the feeler out there. That, like I said, that was the day after Thanksgiving, and the day after my birthday, I think, or 2 days after my birthday or something like that. But a few days later, here's some more talk, here's some more calls, some more emails and whatnot, and I want to say it was the Saturday before, the Friday before PRI, which would have been December 2nd, I think. That was when I officially had signed the paperwork and had done it. So, that was kind of how it all went, right? And
so within a week's time from it being announced, basically week-ish, you didn't even know you were DirTVision next year. You were pit reporting.
Correct. Yeah, and I was totally fine with that, man. I like I said,
that didn't make you feel like the last option, did it?
No, so that was the funny thing, right? I mean, I know that they had some other guys, that were in front of me to get the position, right? But they couldn't get them, they had other commitments, or they couldn't do it, or they had a family so they couldn't leave all the time, or whatever it was, right? I was like the fourth or fifth guy in line that they thought about, which, hey, that's fine with me, man. Look, I'm here now, and I am fully aware that I was not the number one draft pick, and I'm fine with that, but it was still crazy when I got the phone call and everything worked out, and
you sound like Joe Flacco. I mean, seriously.
I think I know who that is. Is that Baltimore Ravens? I don't really know. I don't know football.
Yeah, kind of, but so that's crazy. That's a hell of a turn of events. So it happened that fast.
Yeah, no, it really did, man. It was like, well, they needed they were like, okay, well, we need an answer by this date because we're announcing it, during PRI week. And I was like, well, geez, man, I got to make some phone calls. I called, dude, my phone log, man, for about 5 days. I was making like 15 phone calls a day to my family, my friends, my girlfriend, my freaking cat, my dog, my fish. Dude, I was calling everybody for advice and what they thought and this and that. And luckily I have a lot of people that I can call for things like that, So I got a lot of great advice from a lot of really good people and made the decision. And I see a lot of people commenting on stuff saying that I left for the money, man, and that's just not the case. I could have stayed there and made more money at DirTVision and done that. And it's not about the money sometimes, Chaz. You got to think about the time.
It's about opportunity. It's about playing the game.
You got to think about the opportunity, man. Like, I know, and in my opinion, a lot of people don't know. A lot of people will disagree. I think Johnny Gibson is the best announcer in sprint car, bar none, all together. The music, his style, his delivery. He's got the same thing that he does every single race. Yeah, exactly. I think Brian Holbert is right there as well. I think Brian Holbert is very, very good at what he does. But I know Johnny ain't going anywhere, man. He's got 15 more years, and I don't know. I don't want to be a pit reporter for 15 years. I saw this chance to be an announcer, and I jumped on it, and that's a huge opportunity. That's the next stepping stone in my career. That's where I want to go. And I feel like if I didn't take that chance, then who knows when it would have been available ever again, if ever.
Well, you said you called families and friends. How was the tough call to somebody with the World Racing Group about this? I'm assuming, did that call happen, or did they find out like everyone else?
No, absolutely. I called them and a lot of calls, right, along the way to make that decision, right? And it was super hard, man, because every job I've ever worked in my entire life, and I'm not talking about, broadcast work. I'm talking, like I said, I worked at the Walmart distribution center. I worked at Round Table Pizza, the delivery driver. I worked at Factory
relationships.
Yeah, well, and all of these places that I worked at, I worked there for 3 years or more, every single place. Like, I was very loyal to the places I worked at, right? And I was very loyal to DirTVision, right? I was there for 3.5 years, and so to leave and break that, break out of that relationship was super tough. I met a lot of really good people that I will be friends with for the rest of my life. I had some great bosses there, and that was the tough part, was knowing that, I'm leaving that portion of my life behind, and going to pursue something else. And I made that very clear in those phone calls to those guys. I said, look, I would not be even in this position if it wasn't for you guys. You guys took the chance on me in the very first place and, got me out there to the public, right? And without DirTVision, I know I would not be sitting here talking to you about, being the high limit racing announcer, So I told them that, and I was grateful for every opportunity they ever gave me.
Now, as much as the chat sections want me to come in there and be color commentator with you, that is off the table. Let's make that official for everyone to know.
Yeah, I don't make those decisions, Chaz. I don't know.
That would be hilarious, though. Pre-race. We need pre-race. We need Pat McAfee and me out there yelling and cussing the Larson fans.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. So how do you feel about this sprint car deal, though? How do you feel about it? I mean, it seems like there has been lines drawn. When you just mentioned Port Royal, that was the first public line drawn, it seemed like. How do you feel like this whole high limit World of Outlaw split situation is. Obviously, you should be a little biased, but I feel like you're not so much. It seems like you had a very emotional transition here. So it seems like you could have some type of understanding or empathy from both sides. What do you think about it? Obviously, High Limits got breaks in their schedule, but in those breaks are the biggest sprint car races in the world, basically. Most of them. I think there's like 1 week that doesn't really have, or 2 weeks that doesn't really have big races on them, but the rest of them do. How are you feeling about it? What do you think about this whole sprint car scene now?
Yeah, I just think it's exciting. Bottom line, exciting with, in all caps, with an underline and bold font. It's a great time to be a driver, clearly. You got options. There's so much money up for grabs right now to be a sprint car driver. It's just driving more and more eyes and more attention to the sport of sprint car racing with all this stuff that's going on right now. And that's what I think I'm most excited about, because me and you and everybody watching this stream right now, we all love sprint car racing, and we know what it can produce, right? We know what it does on a nightly basis. It's the best show in the world, and for it to have this much attention on it right now is exactly what we need. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be some bridges burned, and people are going to be mad, and some people will be happy or whatever it is, but I just think right now it's a really exciting time to be involved in the sport, whether you're a guy like you that's doing this stuff, or me being an announcer, or there's drivers, or even a car owner, or whatever it is. I just think right now is one of the best times ever for sprint car racing. And I don't know, man. I just think there's so much to look forward to this year with all the, six-figure paydays. And, I like the high limit schedule. We're going to a bunch of racetracks that personally I've never been to before. And, 410s don't go to that much. And a lot of short tracks on the high limit schedule and whatnot. But, then you got the outlaw stuff, right? I mean, those guys are, Schuhart and Gravel and Shots, and, I applaud them for staying over there. I think I don't know. I'm just trying to think of, I don't know. I see a lot of these guys on hose heads and stuff talking about all the downsides to all this stuff that's going on, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it, right? But if the Outlaws are in Ohio one weekend and the High Limits are in California, right? So there's like two different places for fans to watch high level sprint car racing, right? And then you got the two different streaming services that you can watch on, right? I don't know, man. I just think that there's just so many things you can talk about. There's so many things to look forward to, and it's exciting. And, I know for sure that High Limit's got a lot more stuff to be announced as far as drivers go. Chaz, I think there's going to be almost 18 guys or something going to be trying to do the High Limit Tour.
Well, I was going to say, when you started talking about the Outlaws, you did leave Macedo out. That's a big chip. We're comparing these rosters right now, and I did earlier or yesterday, and I was talking about tier ones, tier 1.5s. Macedo, I feel like if Macedo slides to y'all's side, that's a big hit for the Outlaw roster. And it's surprising a lot of people that he hasn't went outlaw yet. Most people are assuming he's going to be an outlaw, but with this sort of delay, obviously I documented a month ago the Tarleton relationship with Larson is very tight. Obviously Tarleton don't own the team, but Carson and Cole are very involved with those cars, it seems like. What do you think about the back to draft pick? How high of a pick is that 41 car when it comes to high limit to World of Outlaws?
Well, I think right now, of the guys that haven't announced what they're doing and the draft picks that are out there, I think he is like the number one pick that still hasn't said anything, obviously, And to be honest, man, I think he's on the fence. I think
really
that, yeah, I think I really do. And
well, it's a Phil Dietz decision, I'm assuming, but
yeah, I think it's more about Phil, right? And Carson also, I mean, there was a lot of times over the last 3 years where we've given him rides to the airport and we talk a lot, and Carson really, really, really wants to be a World of Outlaws champion. There are not many guys that grew up saying they wanted to be an all-star champion, when they're 5 years old. Everybody said they wanted to be an outlaw champ. That grind, the determination,
right.
all takes to win an 86 race schedule to win the championship for that, right? So I know Carson really wants to win an Outlaw championship, and you know the history that JJR has with the Outlaws, and they've got the Jason Johnson Classic and all that stuff, right? But then you think about Carson's got a pretty tight relationship with Kyle. You know, I mean, obviously he used to race for him, and like you said, the Tarleton deal, and you know this whole charter system deal that's coming out. I mean,
yeah,
it's a lot to think about. If you're
I think
high profile,
right. Well, I was just going to say, I think that a guy like Phil Dietz, who I believe this is the first year he's taken over full ownership of the operation, is looking at that charter system. Any owner out there, the charter system's the way to go. I think if you're going Outlaws, you're going based on loyalty at this point. I mean, if you're a car owner, that charter system is just proper business in motorsports.
Yeah, I don't really, I know the charter system is in NASCAR, but I could not tell you the first thing about it. I heard something about they sold the last one for $40 million or something like that, but
yeah.
I don't really know a whole lot about it. Obviously, I read all the articles that they talked about. But what I will say is, I think it's a very interesting way of approaching it. This is part of those things I was talking about with High Limit, trying to change the game and do some different stuff, I love the World of Outlaws, man. I'll always love the World of Outlaws, but we've been doing the same thing for a long time. It's been the same thing for many, many years. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't change what ain't broke, but it's time to maybe change the game a little bit, right? And that's where High Limit steps in. They have this opportunity, a brand new thing, to try and do some different stuff, and I like the way that they're going about, implementing who gets the charter, right? Top 5 in points, and then the next year it's another top 5 in points. After that, it's a little murky, they're talking about adding 4 or 5 more or whatever, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how much that 50% of the flow revenue is going to be, but I'm guessing it's got to be pretty good for all these guys to be signing up and all the hype behind it, I think it's an interesting idea. Obviously, it's not going to come to the point with NASCAR. All these guys are like, oh, man, if you have a charter with High Limit, you're going to get a provisional to every race, even if you miss all of them. I don't think that's the case. I don't think you're going to get a provisional for every race if you have a charter with High Limit. That's not how it works. This ain't NASCAR, man.
It still feels like that with some of the outlaw teams, does it not? It still feels like they get a charter, but it also or not a charter, but a provisional at every race. It feels like some do. Although Outlaws go to some areas where they're the only 410 ticket in town, and there's not enough cars to even have a B main sometimes as well. So
you start out the year with 3 provisionals with the Outlaws, and then I think after June 1st it resets. You get 3 more, and at World Finals and at Volusia at the beginning of the year, you get a provisional for every single night if you need it. There's no other way to get in the show if you don't make it. So. I mean, we saw Brad Sweet not make the show at the Kings Royal this year. Was it Kings Royal or was it? Yeah, I think it was the Kings Royal. He didn't make the show, or maybe it was the Million. I can't remember, but one of those ones he didn't make the show. I want to say it was the Kings Royal. He did not get a provisional. He literally did not start the main event. The World Outlaws champion did not start the main event at the Kings Royal, right? He doesn't just get a random provisional, So I don't know, man. I see all these people worried that now sprint car racing is going to turn into a playoff format, and everybody's losing their mind because it's going to turn into NASCAR, blah, blah, blah. Dude, come on, guys. I mean, people, I just think they make stuff up to get a reaction.
Words have become catchphrases. It's just like the word liberalization. Like if you go actually look into what the word liberalization means, it is almost the opposite of what you would catchphrase liberal. Just like when you go look into what an actual charter system is, you could say it's like NASCAR, but how NASCAR does their charter system, they done it a different way or done this or done that and screwed the teams and maybe they did it wrong. And I think that's why Brad kind of said it's more so like a franchise into the series, because I think NASCAR has kind of smeared the term charter system in the social domain. People just don't like NASCAR, especially this culture we're from. So anything NASCAR does is evil, it seems like. And
right.
Their phrases and words are evil as well.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. People don't like NASCAR, so when a sprint car deal implements something from NASCAR, they automatically think that it's a bad deal. Dude, NASCAR stole the choose cone. Yeah, NASCAR stole the choose cone deal from sprint cars. How come nobody was complaining about that? I mean, they steal stuff from us, and we steal stuff from them. I think it's, sometimes the other deal has a good idea. You know, I mean,
And we can learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, that could be it.
It's easy. How did they screw up their charter system? Here's how. Okay, well, sprint car racing, let's not do that. You know, one thing that kind of helps with their charter system is they can implement safety changes to cars and things like that because it's more organizational based. The only backside to a charter system, I would say, is I know that High Limit's running on this whole freedom factor thing right now, but come charter system time, I've never really seen a charter system, which basically you become almost like not a gang, but a group, a legitimate group, and you're in it. And the only way to get out of it is to sell it. You know, I kind of described it as a boat slot at a yacht club. You have to sell your slot to leave. You can't just like leave. The only thing is down the road, usually charter systems lead to total control of things. And if the organization gets greedy like NASCAR, what NASCAR did was they went around and bought all the racetracks. So you can't have a competitive stock car series like USAC used to have stock cars. There was a bunch of different stock car organizations. But when NASCAR started buying up the tracks and own everywhere you race, you can't have a competitive organization at their tracks. So it does kind of lead to more so non-freedom, but it depends on what mistakes and what you do and where your moral compass lies in that scenario, I would assume.
Yeah, I think Rico said it the best, man. I feel like it's kind of an investment, right? I think if you're able to get one of those charters this year, next year, right, and you plan on racing a sprint car for the next 10 or 15 years and you plan on racing with High Limit for the next 10 or 15 years, it's like buying a stock, right? And I've done a lot of that, and I've lost a lot of money, right? I don't know. Don't ask me for financial advice because it's terrible. But
Bitcoin.
I think it's buying a stock, right? And if High Limit does everything that they're talking about they're doing, and I think they will, I really do. I think they're going to come true with all their promises that they're making and all these ideas they're bringing up. It is a determined group of people behind the scenes to make all this happen. Then that charter in 10 years or maybe even less than that is going to be worth a lot of money, especially with that line graph I was talking about earlier with the, you know, with the popularity in sprint car racing on the rise like it is right now.
And with the supporters of Flo. I mean, Flo has some big supporters behind it to push it.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, the one thing I'm just curious about is, you know, how are they going to go about giving the next couple, right? Is 10 not enough, or is 20 too many? Is 15 the right number? You know, they still have a lot of details to work out, obviously, and the charter thing isn't going to be even in effect till 2026, and that gives them plenty of time to work out all the kinks, right? But, you know, I think it's hard to also judge what everybody's saying about this stuff, about the charter thing, when we honestly don't even know how it's all going to work yet. It's just, you know, it's an idea. You know, it's coming to fruition a little bit, right? But we don't know the fine print. We don't know all the stuff that goes into it. So it's hard to judge it, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's hard to judge it. And I think, you know, with your 10 or how many they're going to let in, even though they are signing up with a lot of teams to start the year, we see this in the late model world a lot. Usually teams do drop off. I'm not going to sit here and say that if you won't. You know, that's the one thing that the late model industry has, though, and I think that's the biggest difference, is they got organizations that, you know, 30-ish that can afford to literally travel nationally and race on the road all the time. I think in sprint car racing, we don't have 30. Well, they probably got 40 probably, but if you consider the ones who don't even sign up for a tour. But I think we don't have as many car owners that can even attempt to go national full-time money-wise. I do think that, though, this charter system funds the owners enough to where it could become profitable to be an owner, which hasn't happened in a very long time. And so you may have teams come and formulate, or people invest into the sport to buy cars and be team owners if it's a viable investment. Right now and previously, investing in the sport as a car owner is a tax write-off at the best, or something sneaky. You know, there's not too many profitable car owners. There may be some profitable drivers, but I don't know too many car owners that are saying we're over here making money. I think that's where the charter system does open the door to allow that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one thing we need right now. It's just more car owners, you know, and it's hard to it's hard to even fathom being a car owner with all the money that it takes to make it happen. You know, you got to have a business, you know, be a very successful person, or you just got to win a lot to make it work, right? And I think this charter thing, man, I just want to kind of fast forward 2 years from now and see who the 10 guys are that have the charters. Will a guy like hang on, let me go over here. I need to look at the roster right quick of who's in and who's out as far as the high limit goes. But you know, I want to see who some of these guys are that are going to get a charter, and that could seriously help them continue down the road. Like, here's a great example: could potentially that Vermeer Motorsports 55 car get a charter? You know, that would be a huge deal to that team, because I don't know all the backings behind the scenes and stuff like that, but I would be willing to say that Vermeer Motorsports and, you know, Casey Kane Racing are not on the same level as far as, you know, all the equipment, the trailer and the crew and stuff, right? But if Vermeer can get one of those charters and be in the top 5 in points one year or next year, dude, that could be a game changer for those guys and keep them around
and say they go out this next year and Chris Windom hasn't really, you know, been a superstar winged racer. I mean, a Vermeer may be like, well, we got to put a hitter in the car because we need a charter ride, you know? Or maybe, here's what I'm thinking, Chase. If High Limit goes out here and does all fine and dandy and has a smooth year, no matter what the competition with the Outlaws is or whatever, we get to the end of next year and 5 spots are locked in and you got one more year, I don't know any intelligent car owner in sprint car racing who is not going to switch. I just don't understand why you would not immediately switch now and go and try to be profiting owning race cars in this sprint car sport.
That's a really good point. I mean, next year, and I meant to try and find this while you were, Sarah, actually, I'll get it here in just a second, but if
you need me to keep going, I can for 10 minutes. I mean, it's...
No. Okay, here we go. I got it. So let's just say next year, right? Brad Sweet, Rico Abreu, who are 3 other guys that are going to be the top dogs in high limit? I mean, do you think Spencer Basin will be top 5 in points?
I think Tyler Courtney. I mean, it's a hard list. It's hard. It's harder to tell. To me, it's harder to say the top 5 in high limit than it is to say the top 5 in Outlaws. Personally.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and you know, I think. But what I'm getting at is, if those best 5 guys have a charter after this year, like you said, how can you not, knowing that the 5 best guys are already locked in and there's still 5 more up for grabs, how can you not, you know, convince yourself to go over there and try and get one of those charters? And if it doesn't work out, maybe you go back to the Outlaws, right, if you don't get one. Or you go back to being a pick and choose or a true outlaw or whatever it is, you know. I think next year could definitely be very interesting, knowing that there is going to be 5 charters available. Yeah, there you go. You got on the screen right now.
Yeah.
You know, Rico and I think, here we go. Brad Sweet obviously is going to have one, I think. Zeb Wise, I think, is going to be very, very close. Peck, Rico, what is that, 4? And then I think it's going to be a close one between maybe Corey Day and Spencer Basin, right, for that 5th one.
Yeah, but I'm hearing Marks is coming, buddy. I mean, Marks and Tyler Courtney's coming. I'm hearing potentially McFadden in the 11. You got a hell of if that was to happen, let's just say that was to happen. And then if you were to, I mean, Macedo's the teeter-totter one, but if that was to happen, if you brought Marks, Courtney, and McFadden in the 11 over there, God, how are you picking 5?
How are you picking 5? I mean, you ain't wrong, man. And obviously there's a lot of hype for this year, but with what those things in mind that I just mentioned, like, next year could be crazy as well. I feel like next year is when you could see some of those outlaw guys switch over, like a Gravel or something, right? Or
yeah,
a
it's
Geo,
like
maybe.
who? That's what I'm saying, Chase. What's intelligent car owner is not going to jump over immediately and say, this is my last chance. I'm a top tier outlaw team. Let's just say one of the top ones. This is my opportunity to. I know I can beat these other 5 guys. You know, whether that's a Gravel or a Donnie or whoever. You know. Logan Schuhart or Sheldon. I know I'm better than, you know, I'm not saying he is and being cocky, but he would say I'm better than Casey Kane or Corey Eliason. You know, I'm just saying. How would you not make that switch? I just don't know how you would not make that switch as an intelligent car owner with that charter system.
I 100%, but I think that, and, this is me going back to, my old place of employment. I think that the Outlaws are going to do something to try and counteract that, right? Maybe they come out with their own charter system. I think that I don't have any insight, but they are going to do everything they can to try and do something either the same or very, very similar that is also extremely enticing to the team owners. They're not just going to lay over and watch this happen. They're the freaking World of Outlaws, man. They've been around since '78. They've been adjusting to all these crazy changes that they've came through 2 of these splits before and came out on top on the other side. They're going to do something to try and stick around. And I'm not sure what that's going to be yet. I don't think anybody does, but they're not just going to watch it happen. Now, I see one of these comments from John Coyle saying what he heard is High Limit isn't paying a points fund. So what I read was, yeah, exactly. 2026, after those 10 charters are out there, is still going to be a points fund from let's just say there's, 15 guys on the tour. The 11th through 15th are still going to there's going to be a points fund still for those guys, which I think is the right way to do it, right? I mean, how are you going to convince more guys than 10 to show up if you don't have a points fund? Like that, there's got to be a points fund.
Yeah, it's an additional share into the actual business. It's franchisee, it's charter based, it's normal. It's just new to our form of motorsports. It's kind of been the Wild West. I mean, outside of the World of Outlaw sprint cars, I mean, the late models are still somewhat of the Wild West. The structure is fine in their series, but I just feel like this is the first car owner business structure to come to dirt racing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of anything else like it that I've seen. And I don't pay attention, too much to late models and modifieds and stuff like that. I have a little bit here over the last year, but I don't know very much about them really, but yeah, I don't think there's anything like it. And it's a groundbreaking thing, when a guy like an Adam Stern, is tweeting about the charter system, a guy that's got 60,000 followers and is known for a newsbreaker when it comes to IndyCar and NASCAR and all that stuff. He's the one tweeting out the very first thing. I mean, that it just shows how much, how important it is, to the sport of dirt racing. You get the word out there and people are like, man, a charter system, the team owners, their ears perked up, man, when they heard that and read that, and they're like, man, we got to be involved in that somehow. And that's why I think you're about all of these potential guys, even more than the 12 we've already got, trying to make this move over here,
Right. Yeah, I think it's great for like a Buick Motorsports. Some people question if that Peck team could go on the road. I think this charter opportunity and these type of investment things are what's influencing these teams to make that jump. They're not just seeing it as blowing and going. They're seeing it as an investment into something.
Yeah. And I think that just like, obviously that, we talk about a championship, title fight, man, we're going to be talking about the top 5 in points now, Oh man, going into the last race of the year at Texas Motor Speedway, Spencer Basin's got a 2-point lead over Corey Eliason for that last charter spot for 2026,
right. It's like a weird championship chase, but it's for a charter spot.
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool.
It is interesting when you add that element, and that's how you'll be presenting it, I'm sure. Well, you were supposed to only do a damn hour. I don't want to keep you too much longer. It's an hour and a half. Maybe part 2 is coming. We did use your DirTVision picture. I'm sure we'll have FloRacing pictures soon. Are you going to wear a suit and tie to the track? Are you going to class it up? Are you going to come in the Andrew Tate attire? What are you going to do?
Well, I did want to mention in that picture you have up right now, if you take a look at the DirTVision mic flag, it's actually on upside down.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of, yeah, I screwed that up.
It's like a cross. Nope. You knew that was a little sign you were telling them the whole time.
Oh no, look at the shirt, man. That was from like 2 years ago. So that was a while back. But yeah, I mean, wait, what was the question? I forgot.
Are you wearing a suit and tie? We're trying to let you go, being nice.
So I talked to Mike Hess today and He's asking me about shirt sizes, and sounds like I'm going to get a nice polo. I'm going to get some nice golf pants, and I was thinking about getting a hat, but I guess I'm going to keep spiking the hair and just trying to look as professional as possible. I don't think I'm going to go with the white pants, but I'll go with black or some tan or gray pants, and get some new shoes going here. I'm not really sure.
Blue suede
suit and
shoes?
tie. Huh?
Blue suede shoes?
Blue suede shoes. Maybe.
You've never heard of this, have you? Have you ever heard of the word crunk?
Like C-R-U-M-P?
U-N-K. Crunk.
Oh, crunk. Yeah, I've heard that in some music before, I think.
Yeah, well, Blue Suede Shoes is a song. It's a joke.
Oh, okay. Well, I must be out of the loop on that one. Hopefully some of the viewers got that one, but yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to talk to my girlfriend and see what we can do as far as race day outfit goes or whatever. But I don't know. I know they really want me to look professional, and I'm gonna do my best to do that as well. So, but I have a question for you. Are you gonna be watching Larson this weekend? Are you gonna be turning on Fast 4 Media?
Is it worth the watch? Because I know that Cycle Land's worth the watch, but Red Bluff, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, some nights are better than others at that place for sure. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, it could be good content for you if I'm not kidding you. It is not going to be a walk in the park for Kyle to come in there and win. He's never won there before in the class he's going to be running in, and there's a chance. I think I'd say a really good chance that he might not even make the show, and so that could be some good content for the Chaz down the road.
I don't know. Who else is there? Is CV in town? Who else is running?
Oh, man. Well, here's the thing. Like, if I told you some of these guys that are, Tanner Holmes will be there. Landon Brooks, I heard of him
Landon
before.
Brooks, probably the best one right now over there in sprint cars. Young racer, at least.
Yeah. Tyler Seedy, that's Logan's brother. He's over there racing as well. And, I mean, here's the thing, Chaz. I could tell you a bunch of names right now that you've probably never heard before. But here's the thing. It's like right now at Red Bluff, the top, I would say 25 guys in qualifying, they're separated by a tenth and a half. It's that close. Everybody's so close there. There's going to be, I bet you to say there's going to be 45, maybe pushing 50 cars showing up this weekend to try and show up and beat Kyle and try and race with him and all that stuff. So the heat races, man, they're crazy. Only take the top two out of the heat race into the feature, and then, you jump into the alphabet soup. So I think it's going to be fun to watch. I know Kyle really wants to win there extremely badly. I don't know if you saw the post that we put up on Twitter, on the Red Bluff Outlaws Twitter page, but basically, he got asked a question on Instagram earlier this year, a Q&A, and the guy asked him if he was going to be at Red Bluff sometime this year, and Kyle said that his career is not over until he wins an open race at Red Bluff. So it's a big deal to him.
It's almost like the Chili Bowl. We got the Fast Four. That's who's going to be broadcasting it, right? I believe is Fast Four, correct?
Yeah, Fast 4 Media.
Do they got a price on here? What are we doing here? This is it right here. 16 is.
It's $20 to watch. So
it's the RBO broadcast. I'm assuming it's not Chowchilla.
Yeah, so $20 to watch, and it's not Flow and it's not DirTVision, so it's Tyler Shaw. He's a one-man band, so $20.
Tyler Shaw.
Yep, it might sound like a lot, but it's a one guy running this entire show here. So, I'm sure he would appreciate people tuning in, and it's gonna be good, man. And if you're one of those guys that likes to watch racing all day, kind of like the Tulsa Shootout type deal, then this is for you. They start racing at 11:30 in the morning with qualifying and everything, and they don't get done till about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So if you want to watch racing all day, then that's the place to do it. So.
Well, everybody's gonna be trying to watch Gateway, on Flow. So
Gateway's take away some views for sure, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You can't watch Kyle at Gateway. If you want to watch Kyle, $20 to Kyle or Shaw.
That is true. If you want to watch Kyle Larson, you're going to have to watch on fast4.tv. So there you go. I tried to sell it for him a little bit there.
It should work. It should work. Maybe we'll do a watch along. I'll get with Kyler. We'll get a promo code, $2 off or something. Give it to the fans. Watch Kyle.
think
We'll
he was
$2 off, so it's 18. 666. Since Kyle's the dark messiah of the racing world.
6-3. Yep, there you go. Okay.
I'm just kidding. It's for Tanner Holmes,
No.
18T. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, I
What
guess
else?
we'll let you get out of here. Or is there any more
Yeah.
questions? Do you want to ask me questions?
Well, no, I don't have any more questions for you. I didn't. I mean, I think I could go for a little bit longer here if you wanted to. If you had anything else to talk about, if not, then
We can do fan questions if you want. You got the chat rolling?
I do have the chat rolling. Yes. Let me see if I've got anybody that is.
I kind of need to use the restroom real quick. Y'all fans, get your questions going, no matter how offensive they are. I'm sure they're going to be bad. I'm going to use the restroom real quick while we get these chat questions rolling in, and I guess we can go 10 more minutes or something like that.
Yep, that sounds good. Well, I see Rick Durward talking about Red Dirt Raceway and Southern Oklahoma Speedway. Never been to either of those tracks, but Red Dirt, I saw the All-Star race they had there a few years ago, and the USAC races they have there too. And man, I think that track has been at the top of my list to get to for at least 2 years or so now. So really excited to get to Red Dirt. I have no idea what Southern Oklahoma Speedway looks like, but always love going to Oklahoma, man. The fans down there, they come out in bundles. There's a million people that show up to those races. So Blue Boat, Kyle, and Outlaw Carts it's going to be an Outlaw Cart at Red Bluff. That is correct. Jeff Allen, tell again about the Raudman family involved in Northern California racing. Yeah, so my dad was a champion in the NASCAR Southwest Tour Series. I think it was actually, I can't remember if it was a Southwest Series or Southwest Tour Series, something like that. But, he was the champion in 2001, and I think had 11 fast times in 1 year, held the record for a really long time, raced with Kevin Harvick and Ken Schrader and Kurt Busch and a bunch of guys that made it to the big time, and he was able to win the championship back in 2001. My uncle actually won it in 98, I think. So pretty extensive history, I guess, with my family when it comes to pavement racing. Ryan Habor says, what's it cost to watch the Red Bluff race? It's going to be $20 to watch. Dirt track all day. Chase, do you think people will be understanding to you announcing if you're not great out of the gate, or do you feel like you'll be given time to settle in? Honestly, man, I don't think people are going to be very understanding at all. I think if I, have a couple
slip
of
up a bit, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna roast me, right? I mean, if I don't,
they're gonna consistently compare you to Gibson, I think.
Yeah, they are, and I'm fully prepared for it, man. I learned a long time ago in this gig that you're not gonna please everybody. Not everybody's gonna like your style. So I'm hoping that people realize that, hey, I have not announced on a national stage like this. I've honestly announced maybe like a total of 10 wing sprint car races in my entire life. So hopefully people can understand that. If not, then hey, I'll just ignore the comments and keep on rolling. I've learned
play
to do
above
that
the
for a long
noise. When you go up to shoot the free throws and everybody's booing you, you got to play above the noise. You got to make the shots.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got another question here. Looks like Adam, would you like to see high limit series scrap dash draws or actually race for a starting spot? Yeah, I don't know. I think the dash is kind of weird because I just feel like you give the 8 best cars, that night another chance on the track to get their car even more dialed in. I would almost say get rid of the dash, and not give those guys an extra session to get their cars dialed in. So you want to take over the question thing here, Chaz, and you want to read them?
No, that's fine. You keep going. I'll keep going with you. It's fine.
Okay.
You seem to be rolling pretty good here.
A1H says Chase is a sellout. Okay, thank you very much for that. Brian Nordrum, are you going to miss River City Speedway? Absolutely going to miss River City. I'm going to miss the Grand Forks, North Dakota area. I told myself first time I went there, I would move to Grand Forks, North Dakota, except for in the wintertime. I love that area. Also, what do we got? River Cities, have the Outlaws game on. Jesse James, no, that will not be happening. Let's see.
Identify as a female and become the first female 410
Yeah.
racer. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's a good question for sure. Yeah. Eric Garrett, I'm scrolling up a little bit here. Any word on the new Skagit announcers booth? Hopefully they have a new one by the time we get there, Eric, because the one they had this year was like a shipping container, and there was so many like dividers in the windows. Like the windows were like the size of my computer monitor, and like you couldn't see out to each corner. You had to like lean forward or lean back. So hopefully they got a new announcers booth by the time we get there later this year. So Chase has a Kyle Larson, blah, blah, blah. Kyle Larson's the worst thing for sprint car racing. Okay. That's not exactly a question.
The comment sections, man. Never get old.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not really seeing too many more questions here, Chaz.
There's not too many. They stopped. No super chats. We didn't charge them. We should start charging like gravel, you know.
Oh, yeah. How will the evolution of rivalries develop with there being 2 series now? Do you think there will be any play for or even serious banters between racers? People love rivalries. Yeah, I mean, maybe, Chaz, wouldn't it be cool to have like a, someday when the Outlaws and the High Limit series get along, wouldn't it be
AFC and
cool?
NFC.
What if there was like one race where they all showed up and like they battled each other, right, for a big money deal, like and
AFC
it's
and
kind of like
NFC.
the posse. It's kind of like the posse versus the Outlaws, but it'd be the High Limit versus the Outlaws. I think that'd be kind of cool. A Super Bowl, exactly.
Super Bowl is sprint car racing, literally. I think it should be on a wooden track at AT&T Stadium or one of the big football stadiums.
You say a wooden track?
Yes, wooden.
Like
keeps
wood,
the dust
like
down.
A tree?
Yeah,
like
wood, like the old wood tracks. So there's no dust.
Yeah, I remember seeing
like the X game,
back.
like the ramps for X Games and stuff. It's fire retardant wood, slick. You could bank it however you wanted. I think it'd be awesome. Roller derby, sprint cars.
You might be onto something there. I got another one here from Moving the Earth Records. Do you practice or announcing races, maybe to pass races with sound off? I don't do that. What I have been doing though is, and it might sound a little bit weird, but like trying to like the last couple of days, I've been putting an Excel sheet together with all the drivers and their sponsors and stuff, and going back through all the races and writing down their sponsors. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been kind of practicing saying them, because some of them, like Carson Macedo's sponsors, are like the hardest, like 8 sponsors to read fast ever. So
right.
I've been kind of practicing, which might sound kind of dumb, but whatever. I'm just trying to be prepared for the first race.
Is it Albi or Alba? I've heard them both.
It's Alba, your alternative. Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard Albi at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. That one's really tough. A lot of different syllables and whatnot in there that you have to try and pronounce. Ken Joseph, Chase, you raised the bar just by putting yourself out here. I appreciate that, Ken. Dank, what races did you announce, Chase? I talked about it earlier. I first started announcing outlaw kart racing. That's what, I don't know if anybody knows who Tanner Holmes is here in Washington, but that's where he started racing at. I announced those races, and
this is a good one. This is a good one right here. Basically, the question is, Chase, if you develop a phrase that challenges you wanted the best, is your biggest chance to make it your spot. I hope you're thinking. I think the question here is, have you tried to think of some kind of catchphrase yet to the salute to the stands and all that isn't cheesy? Because we've heard some variations over the years, and I think they're cheesy. Have you sat down and gave real thought as to what you're wanting to say for that, iconic salute to the crowd kind of intro?
Yeah, I don't know, because I know that last year High Limit had their little saying that Dylan Welch and Tony Bachhoven were using, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, we're here with the high rollers and what, like they had like something like that for the full wide. I'm not sure. What's that?
Corny. That's what I'm saying. Are you trying to make something that really hits? Not that,
Yeah, I don't know, but I haven't really talked to anybody. I don't know if they're going to want me to use that one. I'm not sure if there's going to be, I don't know if I'm going to have to come up with my own, or if I'm just going to not have one. But, once I get clarification on that, maybe I'll start to think of one. I get a lot of mixed reviews. People don't like that kind of stuff, and some people do. The one thing I'm thinking about bringing was my call to the green flag, which was back in the day was, we got them racked, we got them stacked, and we got the grandstands packed. Let's go racing off turn number 4. I used to say that before every race, and I get a lot of people seem to like that one. But then, people say, don't say anything about going green. We're just going green. It's not a big deal. You don't need to make it some big thing, But I don't know. I don't know if we're going to use that or not, but I know a lot of people like it. So have I been to Lernerville? Yes, I have. Love Lernerville. Excited to get back there next year. Ryan says, do you study stats? Of course I study stats. Yes, I did that a lot, especially as a pit reporter, but probably going to have to do it even more as an announcer, I think. Jeff Allen, why isn't there any dirt tracks in the Reading area? Great question. The nearest one is in Chico, obviously, and I don't know why there isn't any in Redding, California. That's what he's talking about. There's something else here. Oh, this guy says, why would Chase be practicing Macedo instructions? Hint, hint. I'm not hitting towards Carson Macedo being high limit. I'm just saying I'm guessing he's going to use, if he does become an outlaw, he's going to use some races of his to run high limit races. So that's why I was practicing his. And I've been practicing all kinds of different guys. Practicing Chase Randall stats or not stats, but, sponsors. I mean, Brian Brown all over the place, so.
Right. These questions could come forever if you want to go all night.
Yeah, I'll go for a few more minutes here. Do you need the blessing from the promoters to come on the show tonight? Yeah, missed again if you already did answer. Not really. I mean, they kind of don't care too much what I'm doing. I still do the World of Outlaws iRacing Pro Series. That's on DirTVision, and they don't care that I do that. So it's a pretty lenient deal. Will I be screaming slide job every corner? Not. I mean, if they're throwing sliders, then maybe, but probably not. Can I get Chaz press credentials? Chaz, I'm sorry, I don't think I can.
I ain't asked.
What's one track amenity you wish every track had? That's a good question. I would have to say, and I think people are gonna make fun of me for this, but the Port Royal Speedway frozen bananas they have there are unbelievable. I wish every single track had the Port Royal Speedway frozen bananas. They're the best.
Never heard of it.
Well, you got to try it. It's at that ice cream stand they have there, the fair food type deal. Yeah. I
would say proper restrooms.
Oh, is amenity not? Am I thinking of something else? Was I just talking about food? Or
it's pretty much anything there. What kind of thing do you think every track kind of had? Or a minute? I mean, I don't know if that meant food in particular, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I mean, I think if have you ever been to Weed Sport, Chaz?
Yes.
You know that little bar area they have, like behind the grandstands?
The awning part with the food and everything, or the other side?
Well, they have they have
the bar too.
Yeah, I think that would be cool if like every track had like a little section like that. I think they have the TVs in there and bar stools and stuff, and I think having a little bar area at every track would be super cool. Skagit's got a cool one there. Ty Dennis says, how will you pick the music? Will you use the same song before the start of A-Main or during the fan salute? So that's kind of something that they've been talking about a little bit here. And there's an idea maybe that we get each high limit, high roller driver to put together maybe like a playlist of 10 or so, and, we can use those. That could be something different. Right. And like on the maybe a graphic pops up and say, hey, this is from, Corey Eliason's high roller playlist. And so people can kind of get to know the driver's style of music too, just get to know them a little bit better, so that's something. Chaz sound off right now to chase someone. Okay, well, I'm not going to comment on it, but what's my favorite track from Dirt All Day? Dude, honestly, my favorite track, I think it's got to be Hobstop. I love Hobstop. That's one of my favorite races.
You're right.
Yes.
Yeah, the drivers hate it though. Most of them do. It's probably because it's hard. It's a short track,
It's one of the most polarizing tracks for sure. I think it's hooked up all night. You got to be on the gas to get around there without being
And you got to
tight,
slam her in there wide ass open, you know.
Yep. I love it. I love Hofstad, and Lawrenceburg is up there. Great to see that made it on the schedule. So, there's a lot of great tracks out there for sure. That I like going to Placerville in California too, and I don't know, man. I can go on and on. And this Rick Durward says my new favorite track will be Red Dirt Raceway. I believe you, Rick. If it's a good race and I'm there in person to see it, like Red Dirt Raceway could jump to the top because that place is, from the video, being unbelievable.
The Southern Swing's impressive for both the Outlaws and High Limit. I mean, you are going to go to RPM. You've never been there. I heard you were saying a minute ago. That's a very, a lot of those Southern tracks, they're like California size, and they'll have some speed, but they're more so like Port Royal-esque surface. They get glassy and slick. So it slows down a lot, but the racing gets extremely close and, kind of, I call it like a swarm style of racing where it's back and forth, float in the middle of the track, on the bottom of the track, top of the track, but on a quarter mile. Like I said, like Port Royal. Because it gets really glassy and slick and you can race kind of all over. And that's what those short tracks down there kind of do. Unlike California where it's all buck up and there's a cushion, you're slamming it and you're just trying to hang on, cowboying it. It's got that effect because it's a short track, but there's a lot of finesse in those Southern short tracks. So tracks like RPM, that's going to be very interesting for y'all. Very small track. I'm surprised y'all are having a race there. I promoted it for a couple years. Help promote it at least. It maybe fits 1,200 people, 1,500 on a good day. But streaming is making these short tracks viable now because it ain't always about in-person attendance that can justify funding a race at some of these facilities. So I think that's great in streaming's aspect. And Southern or Ardmore, somebody said Southern Oklahoma, that's a badass racetrack too. Brock Zierfoss, I believe, won the COVID year. They went down there. Amazing race. Very fast track, high banked. I believe it's a 3rd mile. And then y'all go to Texarkana 67 as well. I probably should bring the damn schedule up. But there's a lot of tracks you're going to go to that I saw on the schedule there that is definitely different and missing sprint car racing for a while. That is going to be extremely impressive for the racing that it can put on. Golden Isle teaming up with the late models. I think that'll be amazing. Riverside, just unbelievable, that racetrack. I don't know if you've been to Riverside. Have you been to Riverside?
I have not. I have not been to a lot of the tracks. Like all those tracks you're showing on screen besides East Bay, I have not been to Golden Isle, never been to Riverside, Texarkana, or RPM, Red Dirt, Southern Oklahoma, Salina, been to 81, been to Lakeside. Went to 34, never saw a race there. I've been there like 3 times, and it's rained out every single time. But, and what I like about High Limit schedule is there's not as many half miles, right? I feel like most of the schedule is all tracks, 3/8 miles, which, can bring more guys that are running High Limit full-time. I think that's another driving factor for running High Limit is the lack of half-mile racetracks on the schedule. There's just not that many. You got Eldora, you got Port, you got, I-70 is a pretty big track. I don't think it's a half mile, but it's a really big racetrack. And, I can't really think of many other. I don't know how big Texas Motor Speedway is, but
Texas is a big track, 4/10 half. You got some stretches in here that are short tracks, like all this opening of the year. East Bay, Golden Isle's a little big. Texas Motor Speedway's 4/10 half mile ish. And 4/10 isn't a real thing. Apparently 2/5 is the proper term for that measurement. Lakeside's obviously big. Outlaw's not. I've actually raced a modified at Outlaw. But then once May starts, you do get on some bigger tracks. Port Royal's pretty big. I-70's big. Lucas Oil's a big-ish track, I would say. Portsmouth is a big track. Eldora is big. Lernerville's big. Thunderbolt, I don't know. Would you consider Tulare a big track? I mean, it races short, but it is a pretty dang big track.
Yeah, it's pretty big, but I would still consider it a short track, I think. It races, a lot like a short track. It's just kind of the straightaways are super long, but, just you scrolling through the schedule and looking at it, man, it's so good. It's so diverse. I love it. I look at it and I just get so excited knowing that we're going to see a lot of bull ring action, almost.
Oh, looks like we just lost him. His phone might have died, I think. His phone might have died. Oh, my. Oh, he's back. Thought you were mad at me.
No, I thought you were mad at me. I don't know what happened there. But
I thought your phone might have died or something.
Port Royal races like a small track, even though it's a big track. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. So a couple more questions I see coming in here. I saw one that I wanted to answer. Where did it go here?
Not one damn super chat. Broke some bitches. No, I'm just playing.
Chase, we have more. Yeah, this guy said, Brian Stewart, will you have more free time with less races or will you have other racing commitments? Yeah, I'm going to have way more free time, and that was one of the big driving factors. Another driving factor for me, doing the high limit deal was being able to be home more with family and girlfriend and the cats and, the dogs and whatever, So being able to take a vacation every now and again. But, I'll still go to Knoxville for the Nationals and, maybe a couple other races here and there. But, yeah, it's going to be great to have some time off. And, I love racing, but I also love golfing. I love hockey. I love, video games. I love all kinds of stuff, right? And it's going to be nice to be able to have time for all those other things throughout the race season. So, Nick Junger, ever been to Salina High Bank Speedway in Oklahoma? Never been there. I've heard a lot of good things about it. This guy says, will High Limit or Flow produce a season-long documentary or any type of unique content to help grow the sport, like Drive to Survive on Netflix? That would be pretty cool if they, did a Netflix documentary on this.
That's close to what that dirt thing was.
Yeah, like if they did that and following like 3 or 4 drivers around, obviously that takes a hell of a production crew. But man, that would be really cool to see something like that. Let's see. Is it awkward?
I haven't heard anything about Texas. Sorry, somebody asked about the Texas dirt. Texas dirt's a big concern. If they haven't changed the dirt there, I feel bad for what's about to happen. It's not a good scenario. I don't know if I'm sure it's on the radar, but I haven't heard nothing about it. So I would suggest taking the dirt from Devil's Bow immediately and transferring it to Texas Motor Speedway because there's big issues over there for the surface.
Yeah, and we go there 3 times, so hopefully they've got everything sorted out. But Roger McCluskey says, "Is it awkward for Chase to interview Rico?" No, I don't think it's awkward. And a lot of people have given me a lot of crap for not, bending over or kneeling down to him, whatever. And Rico called me, earlier this year and told me to not do that. He told me to keep doing what I'm doing. He wants me to treat him just like every other driver because he is every other driver. He's a normal dude, So I continue to interview him the same way I've always interviewed him. I've interviewed him for years, when he was in go-karts or, all that stuff, So I'm not going to change when I talk to Rico. It's going to be exactly the same because that's what he wants, So it's not awkward for me. So what's my favorite California track? Placerville is certainly up there. But when Ocean is right, I think Ocean is severely underrated. It's got to be right because they've had a rubber problem there the last couple of years. But when it doesn't take rubber, man, I've seen some really, really good races at Ocean Speedway. So hopefully sometime down the road we can get that on the high limit schedule.
I thought that would have been a high limit or somebody's date, but it didn't get an outlaw or a high limit date. That was unfortunate. Yeah,
for the Outlaws, Ocean's usually they have a couple tracks where they switch back and forth, like every 2 years or so. They go to 2 tracks and then they take 2 years off or a year off from those tracks and then they go back to the other 2. And like Merced was kind of in there. Bakersfield Speedway was in that deal as well. Not sure about what's going on with Ocean anymore, but yeah, this guy, good question here. What is my favorite hockey team? So here's the thing. This year I moved here to Ohio with my girlfriend, and so by default, I feel like I have to be a Columbus Blue Jackets fan. I actually just went to a game a few days ago. The problem is they are absolutely terrible. So you go there kind of knowing they're going to lose. But, I got a jersey and everything. But my other 2 teams are the LA Kings. I really like the Kings. I like their players. I like their announcer. I like their goal horn. I really want to go to one of their games. And my other teams I really like underdogs is the Arizona Coyotes. So those are my top 3 hockey teams. I've only been a hockey fan for about a year and a half, and I'm like full-blown addicted to it at this point in time. Liam Channel, will you go on Gravel's show? Well, he'd have to ask me, Liam. He hasn't asked me, but I will go on it if he does ask me. So, what else?
Maybe the Chaz is like sprint cars to his stepping stone of Gravel. I don't know.
Maybe it could be. Is Gravel on tonight?
I don't know. I didn't. Maybe he's went silent. I ain't seen him anywhere. I ain't seen what his next one is, or what he's doing next.
Yeah, I thought for sure he was like doing one a week or something. So I don't know.
Maybe tomorrow.
Find the dirt track all day. Chase, who will win this year? Prediction time. Are you talking about the championship for high limit? If you're talking about the championship, I mean, obviously it's really hard to not talk about Brad. But I think Rico, and a couple of these other guys that, if it comes true that Chaz is saying, I mean, I think it's not going to be a runaway, especially with the short tracks that we're going to. I think that brings a lot of different players into the game as well for that championship, because there's so many of them. It's such a big part of the schedule. I'd say 80% of the schedule is small tracks, which helps a lot of guys that may not have the best, half mile program. So I'd say right now the favorite has got to be Brad, right? Wouldn't you agree, Chaz?
I think the favorite is Brad, but how much will all these, sticks being in fires, distract him from being focused on just racing? And I've heard a lot of people say that I heard a lot of people say that they may, if he does start whipping up on him too much, that he'll, all of a sudden one night the tire goes flat during the A main and he gets last place points to tighten the chase up, I mean, and honestly, in a marketing aspect, I'd do it personally. I mean, if Brad Sweet's, 2 months into the season and's got a 200-point lead or something, it's time to flatten some tires. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I there's a lot of people that said the Outlaws were biased to Brad Sweet, and I couldn't believe it, especially with everything going on. But I'm not.
I couldn't believe what happened at Devil's Bowl. I couldn't believe what happened at Devil's Bowl. That was a lot of time.
Yeah, but I mean, you just have to know the situation, right? You were there. I mean, we only had one tow truck, and there was a 28-car wreck, and I mean, people are going to look at that and think it was. But why would the Outlaws be biased to Brad Sweet? I mean, he's
at that
starting
point,
a brand,
it made no sense.
series.
Yeah,
exactly. So I got some more questions here. They're rolling in a little bit now.
They're all going to keep going. They're never going to stop. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say another 5 minutes. I've said that 3 times now, but I'll keep going a little bit here. Walter, have you been to the Stockton dirt track? They are rebuilding the track right now, turning it into a high bank quarter mile. Yes, I've been to Stockton a lot. And, man, they've had their fair share of issues at that place here over the last couple of years with the track being super rough and sending guys for big rides. And it's good to hear they're changing it up a little bit to try and to bring it back to life there because, they got a huge grandstands there. They got a good racing scene out there. Stockton, hopefully they get everything figured out. Nick Kramer, do I get a company car? Nick, I think we're going to be doing a lot of rental cars this year. Let's see. Phil Sanders, Macedo.
Here's a good comment. Corey Day's going to be strong. That's a sleeper. Travis Pasama, not Travis Pastrana, which I think Travis Pastrana should run next year with y'all. It could happen. Yeah, that's one thing that the Larson kind of hype can make things like that happen. Who knows if Dale Jr.'s in a race next year. But Corey Day is a sleeper. I think Justin Peck, there's a couple guys in here who ain't really went national and I mean, I know Peck did. Him and Courtney went at it for the All-Stars, but he's matured a little bit more. Corey Day, a lot of people see him as a Larson Part 2 almost. And if he does have a hint of that ability, he could easily give Larson a run, or Sweet, that is, a run for his money.
I could see it, man. Corey Day is going to be around for a long time unless he, gets taken the NASCAR route. If he doesn't, he's going to be for a long time and winning for a long time. Obviously this is going to be a huge, huge stepping stone from this year because, like I said, there's 60 races, and I would say that Corey Day has only been to maybe 10 of the tracks we're going to, so he's going to have a lot of learning to do very, very quickly. So it's going to be fun to watch, though. He's a guy that he gasses it up no matter if it's a track he's seen a million times or once, So Corey Day was a huge signing for High Limit. I feel like that was one of the biggest surprises, really, of all the signings so far, was him going full-time, because the talk was that he was going to finish school, and, he wasn't going to go full-time until 2025.
Right.
But now, here he is, man, he's doing it. So, Ty Dennis, do you think SVG will make any starts? Larson and Justin Marks' relationship could help. I saw Larson's tweet today talking about Shane Van Gisbergen, whatever, I can't say his name. Hopefully I can figure it out if he does run High Limit. We do know that Shane Van Gisbergen has ran sprint cars in Australia, and he's won some races there, so I do think it's a possibility. I don't have any inside information, but, man, like Chaz, that's what we're saying, Chaz. If something like that can happen, that brings even more eyes to sprint car racing. That guy's a big deal right now, so that would be pretty big if he can make a couple.
Yeah, that's that element that Larson can bring to High Limit that I don't think the Outlaws can match.
Absolutely. Yeah. All that has to happen is, Larson doesn't run, or he doesn't run a High Limit race or something, right? And Paul Silva takes the 57 when Van Gisbergen got a weekend off or something, takes him over there, and they run, that's all it has to really happen. You just jump in the 57 and try and make something happen. So, Chase, which driver is more likely to get a championship in Woo this year, Bill Rose or Noah Gass?
Oh, God.
I'm going to go with Noah Gass, I think. I think Noah Gass is definitely over Bill Rose for sure. Jim Sutherland, what's up with Kofoid? I think that's kind of a question on a lot of people's minds right now.
Right.
I don't have the inside information on that one. Chase, when are you and Kyle going to run go-karts together? So here's a funny story, Chaz. That's a good question from Blue Boat there. So back when I raced, and remember when I said that I wasn't very good? I was terrible. That's why I there was a few moments where there was actually 2 weekends in a row where I was leading the A main at Red Bluff, and I spun out all by myself in the lead. And I never was able to win a feature. But there was another time when I was running the 250 class, and Larson was at the track that night. This is obviously a really long time ago. This has to be probably, 13, 14 years ago maybe. But my dad was like, dude, we can't tell if the motor's running right. We're looking at your lap times, and we're watching you, and it doesn't really seem like you're going that fast, right? So Kyle Larson actually got in my go-kart. My dad asked him to hot lap it, and he ran it at the track and was bouncing off the chip or whatever, and looked at the lap times okay, yeah, my kid's just slow. So we figured that out real quick. But yeah, kind of an interesting story there from Blue Boat. Hopefully, I don't know if we're ever going to race go-karts together again. Maybe at K1 or Slideways or something. I could see that happening, but not the real deal. So, but yeah, that's an interesting story. But yeah, Chaz, I think I said 5 more minutes, and it's been about 5 more minutes. So hopefully,
we'll let them go. They'll keep rolling if you want them. They will.
Yeah,
not
they
stop.
will. I'm almost pushing midnight. No, I bet. Yeah, I bet. We got 200-something people watching. So, but I hope that answered a lot of them, and hopefully people maybe learned a little something about me before we jump into this deal next year. And like I said, Chaz, earlier, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, and hopefully like I said, some people learned something about me tonight.
Well, I think how it happened is really important for people to hear. To know that within a week's time, you thought you were DirTVision and your High Limit signed announcer is pretty. I don't think too many people would have guessed that. I think even if you were a part of the selection board, they would have let you know. But they didn't even let you know you were a part of the selection or nothing until a week ahead from hiring you.
Yeah, that's a good point, man, because I was talking to Brad 4 or 5 days before it got announced, right? And I was like, Brad, I think people are gonna be mad that it's me, because everybody thought it was gonna be Chet. Everybody's, Chet's leaving USAC, he's going to High Limit. It's gonna be Chet. And I was like, Brad, people are gonna be upset that it's not Chet and it's gonna be me. He's like, man, I think people are gonna be really, really surprised, and don't worry about what all the naysayers say and all this stuff, And I'm like, I've always done that, right? I don't care what the haters say. That A1H guy said I'm a sellout. I don't care, man. I don't care what you say about me. I don't know who you are, But
right.
It was crazy. I could not the response that that the social media got when that was all announced. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think people knowing about it is and how it worked is really intricate into you going forward. You know, because like you said, I mean, the AG ones and all these people or whatever, they're just basically, you know, in the crowd. You know, there's the part of the noise that you're playing above. You know, so but I do think, you know, it's hard to not care about what people think sometimes, and to know the truth of how it actually went through and down is way more. I think anyone thinking you just quit for the money or backstab the Outlaws has some kind of story to uh, understand, at least. Before it was just an empty block of guessing and imagination.
Right, and that's why kind of one of my reasons for coming on and doing this show is just try and clear the air. It was a very, very hard decision for me to leave DirTVision. I loved working there. I had a great time. I was, working for the freaking world of Outlaws, man. I mean, it was crazy. And it wasn't like I just left and said, hey, it's not like I didn't call them and tell them what was going on and they found out on Twitter at the same time as everybody else, right? I mean, there was calls for, a week at a time, trying to get things sorted out and negotiations and everything, right? It wasn't like I just got up and left. I put a lot of thought into it, called a lot of people to hear what they thought, so, no, I was, I'm loyal to the people I work for. Like I said earlier, every place I've ever worked, I've worked there for 2, 3, 4 years at a time. And hopefully people kind of understand that. I know there's not everybody that's ever commented on those posts watching tonight, but, I'm sure there's quite a few in here. So hopefully it cleared the air a little bit.
Okay. Well, is there nothing? When's your first race? Are you going to Chili Bow or Shootout?
Yes, I will be at the Chili Bowl. So we'll be hanging out in turn 2 like we normally. I wasn't there last year. I missed my first Chili Bowl in 10 years last year, but I'll be back this year.
That's about what happened to me. I didn't go
Coming
to the
back
last one either.
Coming back as the defending Chili Bowl pool champion.
You won it.
A lot of pressure. Yeah, $3,600.
You didn't go,
man.
and you won it.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? Because every year I'd go, I wake up at 9 a.m. on practice day. I watch every guy. This year, didn't watch any of them and won.
Wow.
Maybe that's the strategy.
That is. And you said how much was it to win?
I think it was $3,600, and then there was a couple people who didn't pay, so it went down to $3,400.
Okay.
Pretty good pay.
Well, maybe this year, defending champion, did they give you a belt or a trophy or anything?
I'm not sure, but I think it'd be kind of cool to do a rep, the old Loud Pedal video where he's following that guy into the Tulsa Expo Center with his driving bag. He needs to do one with me with my clipboard and whatnot, coming back in as the defending champion,
Yeah, it's true.
Or I just don't do it and I retire,
Well, I'm sure you might.
You're
not getting asked to announce at Chili Bow. It is a Flow event.
No, I have not heard anything. And, to be honest, man, I just want to go there and have a good time. I don't want to have to worry about waking up early or, going to bed early or whatever it is. I want to be able to go there and have fun and watch the race and hang out in turn 2 and do all that stuff. So maybe one night, I don't know, maybe I pop into the booth and do a little guest appearance. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything about it. But, if that doesn't happen, that's fine with me. I'll hang out in the stands with my friends and everybody else that hangs out over there, the craziness that goes on, and I'll be totally fine with it. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Did you ever go to the old Lenny's?
I did. Yes, I was.
The real Lenny's.
Yes, I have.
The
been
new
to
one
old
sucks.
Lenny's. Yeah, the new one, just doesn't really do it for me. Yeah, the one place, the Caravan, I think is what it's called. That place is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that shut down as well. I think that shut down as well, or it's like a banquet now. I believe that's where they had that or had that BC fundraising auction event. I went to that a few times. It was at that Caravans that had shut down. Lenny's, and then we all stay away from Cloud 9. We all stay away from Cloud 9 in Tulsa. It's a horrible place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anytime you see eggs and legs till 4 a.m., that's bad.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to do eggs and legs for sure. I agree. It's bad combination.
Definitely. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I don't know really how to say bye, but
Yeah. All right, Chaz, and people watching, I appreciate it. And Chaz, I'm sure we'll see you down the road somewhere. Thanks for having me. We'll talk to you later.
what's your socials? Do you want to throw anything of that out, or are you just gonna hang up? He's just gonna hang up. What an asshole. Thanks a lot, Chase. Bye. That was perfect, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we'll get to the YouTube chats. It was dragging out too long anyway. That's fine. So what do y'all think of the event tonight? Oh, wow. We didn't get a super chat, but we got a Venmo. That's awesome. Because you super chat and it's like 70% or 60% goes to me and 40% goes to the hierarchy known as YouTube. So Justin, who we did add Justin's name to the top of the screen, finally just sent $10 on Venmo. That is awesome. So yeah, links in the description if you want to support PayPal or Venmo if you haven't super chatted, or you could join the membership button below. Chaz, what series will not give you credentials? I think the shorter list is which series will. Will not is definitely under the outlaw banner. That's been a situation ever since 2019 when I called out their hierarchy and they just didn't like it. And ever since then, I've been denied. I did get accepted to the late models, I believe, in 2020 or 21. I think it was 21. But then for some reason that just stopped because they didn't like something I had said on YouTube about them. Haven't really tried with Lucas Oil. I do get in a lot of the people who seem to like what I do here is the track promoters. They get it, because sometimes I'm sticking up for them as well in this whole shindig. So track promoters seem to attune and like what I do. And most of the time when I do get credentials, it's through the tracks. It's not through the series. But with series slowly renting tracks here as we keep going, that's going to be an issue. And at the end of the day, I don't have to go to tracks. I mean, I could sit here and do the dirt tracker style of deal and not go to tracks and just say what I think on things that happen. But will not give for sure. World of Outlaws will not. Honestly, credentials have almost become a leash for people, because they give you the credentials and they think they own or control you. I had that situation happen this last year with some tracks up north. And when you don't do as the master says, they get rid of you and they rip your credentials and they use it or hold it over your head. I don't care really for media credentials at the end of the day. And anyone who does give them, if High Limit wants to give them to me, that doesn't mean that I'm just going to sit there and give everything that happens a pass. And that seems to be potentially will be a bigger issue in the future to where I may not be going to races as much and will be just sitting here and talking and saying as I do, because when you depend on credentials and access, you depend on these people who will control you. And sometimes these things out there care about their image and they want control media, similar to the political world that we deal with. The most honest people in the political world don't have credentials to events. You're not seeing Joe Rogan at, the presidential debates or any of these actual people are talking with some common sense because the established parties don't like common sense. So whether High Limit goes out here and does the great thing for a year doesn't mean they will for 10 years. And in 6 years, I may want to say something, or next year I may want to say something, and instantly I'm a bad guy and they can dangle credentials over my head. You ain't getting these no more. I don't really like that feeling. So I don't know if credentials are very valuable to me. Respect is, I think if anybody gives me credentials, it's based on respect for the Constitution, freedom of speech, and Americana, and merit, and truth and honesty. But if they want to reject them or hold them over me, that just shows me that they're a part of control and trying to basically phrase a narrative how they want it more so than what it is. And I don't like that, but people in powerful positions don't like that either. So anyways, I guess that'll be it. chat's kind of slowed down. Chase Raudman has tuned out. Want to thank him for coming on to the show. We got a lot of things happening here. Gateway, man, still on the table. There's a lot of things happening right now that makes me want to pack up and head out to Gateway. But it is very expensive. I do not, it's a funded deal, like Justin sending the $10 on Venmo, very important. This is a publicly funded source deal. That's how it happens when you talk like I talk or think like I think. You don't get accepted by the typical, not manufacturer cartel, but just the sponsorship dollars. But I don't want to be controlled by companies and corporations. So that's fine with me as well. We'll make it survive one way or another. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Join the support. Links in the description. Get your name up on the top of the screen and support in what I think is right, you know. But it's more so about what I think. If you like freedom of thought, support the channel. Regardless, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the talk there with Chase. We'll see about this watch party or at Gateway tomorrow. I may go live from Gateway tomorrow, or I may go live from here watching Gateway tomorrow, but plans are to do some kind of watching party around Gateway this weekend, whether that's pre-race and post-race at the track or during the race, watching it here at the home facility, as we may call it. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see what other, I see people asking about guests. We'll see what other guests want to come on. If y'all want to see a driver on the Chaz, the best thing you could do is go to that driver and say, when are you going to be on the Chaz? Go message their socials, go DM them, go send them tweets, blow up their inbox. When are you going to be on the Chaz? We want to see you on the Chaz. These guys want them to be on the Gravel Show. So they're going to go message Gravel or tell them to go be on Gravel Show. That's fine. I mean, Gravel's great, but if you want to see them on the Chaz, how I talk, how we think, how we throw out perspectives over here, break things down, whether you like it or not, go message these people. Say, hey, get on the Chaz. The Chaz wants you on the Chaz. I'm not against any of these people coming on. They just ain't reached out to me, or I've reached out to them and haven't heard anything back. But anyways, send those requests and messages to all the people you want to see to get on to the show. And as always, like the video, comment below, join the memberships with the button right here. And then also, there's also this big old button that says subscribe. And we will catch you next time.
We can ride anywhere we need to go. We can ride all night up to the morning, as long as we make the show. We can be the best or we can be the worst. We can be the best thing you ever heard. With the motor singing and the grandstands ringing, it's hard to put it all in words. But this is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the groove. Don't give a damn about the cash we're spending. The time we got, we choose to play it on the go, to stay out on the run. We all high, wild, and handsome. Ain't telling you what's right or wrong or what to choose. Hey, but this is how we do. This is how we do. Out on the dirt ovals we play, in the bright lights with no shade. So letting her go, letting her rip, letting her fly, tossing her in sideways, living the life.